All right, we're here as the Lost Rider Podcast. Good morning and welcome to the second half of this week's News from the Camp House. It's Herman Brune. I do not have a guest this week. I'm just kind of rambling on about a few things, talking about how much I hate cell phones and talking about this knee job that I just had. It's supposed to be a minimally invasive knee job. We're going to see how it works out. I don't completely understand all this stuff. I have reservations. It's supposed to get you up in about half the time. Now, I'm into about day 10, 9 or 10 since having it done. It was done Wednesday a week ago. So when you're listening to this on Saturday, you think, okay, last Wednesday, the Wednesday before that. That's how long it's been. And I'm still kind of down. I've got a walker. I can kind of run with that walker. I've got a cane. I have to be careful when I'm walking around with a cane. I can walk around the house with nothing, but, I'm subject to fall down, which don't bother me, but that bothers a lot of people. And I hadn't done it yet, but I could imagine it might be hard to get back up. So anyhow, I'm kind of motivating around here on a cane and a walker. I thought I'd be going a little quicker than this, but we'll see what happens. We'll see how long this takes. We'll keep track. The other thing, like I said, talking about how I hate cell phones. I spent 30 years going into the wilderness. I'm a wilderness guy. I love packing mules and going to the mountains and doing all that primitive camping, where the most modern thing we ever had was a Coleman lantern. And you cut wood with a crosscut saw and you pack mules, and everything was done by hand. And it was a wonderful, great way to live. And you stayed busy. You never had to worry about downtime, because there was always something to do. There was always, and you had hunters to take care of. So you're making their life as easy as you possibly know, comfortable and as nice as you can make it in a primitive camp situation. When I started doing this early on, the greatest thing that these guys were getting going on these trips was a disconnect. They would disconnect from their office. They would disconnect from their problems. They would disconnect from the aggravations and annoyances that clutter up their minds and their lives, and they were able to focus. In just a day or two, they knew their biggest thing they had to worry about was staying warm, staying dry, and keeping, being well fed, and then trying to hunt. And they figure out now all of a sudden, I'm not worried about a bunch of technical stuff. I'm just worried about staying warm and dry. And this guide here is helping me do that. And you would break things down to the simplest forms. And after that, then they would start reconnecting with the right things in life. They'd start reconnecting, thinking about families. They could shed a bunch of those little annoyances and grievances that makes life aggravating and making it hard and that get in the way of seeing what's your true priority in life. And they would shed these things and have the opportunity to sit there and realize, how fortunate they are to be where they're at, how fortunate they are that they have this opportunity to cleanse themselves, cleanse their souls a little bit. So that how many of them, I saw it over and over and over again. These guys, by the end of the trip, they were anxious to go home, see their wife, see the children, and reconnect with the real, true priorities in their life. I have a hard time believing nowadays that if they're packing their cell phones in the mountains, and we've got all these solar rechargers and all these different ways to charge things so that those things and if you get up on top of a mountain and get service, I got a hard time believing that they're getting the true experience that the mountains can give them. That they don't really, I mean, they're sharing the experience in a different way, but they never get to really disconnect from a lot of the other problems. I never, ever, you figure 2022 was the last year I went to the mountains. I was 65, and that was the last year I went to the mountains. And I have never packed a cell phone into the mountains. Never done it. And it's never anything I wanted. I was always so glad to have that disconnect time and to be able to just kind of live clean. And it just seemed like a good thing. I saw the good that it did for other people. And I got to be a part of that, and that was great. How many times I would go up, be on a mountain, be on a ridge, be tucked under a tree somewhere, crawl up in a spruce thicket, build a little fire, get out of some rain, get out of some moisture, and sit up looking at a valley beside a little fire. Sit there and toast your hunter sandwich for him. He go in his pocket, pull his old cold wet sandwich out, and I said, "Wait a minute, let me see that." And I'd cut me a green forked stick and then toast his sandwich for him, and we'd sit up there by a fire, and it really makes it nice. That's a treat. When you're cold and wet and sitting up, way the hell up top of a mountain somewhere, that's a treat to have your sandwich toasted, and you appreciate it, and it's such a clean, fun thing to do. And then to have these guys sit there and start spilling out their stories and telling me about things that, with their wives and kids and their jobs and all these things, some of these problems. And I'd say, well, you're talking about it now, so I think you know how to fix it. And they would. It'd be simple. You go home and talk about it. You go home and fix it. These are things that they were holding inside. And suddenly they were able to realize this was a problem that they needed to go home and fix. And if they could sit up there and talk to me about it, they could go home and talk about it and take care of it. And it was, I saw that so many times. And then there's a lot of times people didn't always have problems. You had a lot of guys that were in good shape, but they come up there and they just loved it, Had one gentleman that really impressed me one time because he was so anxious to go home. He was older than me. He was about 6, 7, 8 years older than me. And he had never been that many days away from his wife. And he was anxious to get home. And I thought that was incredible. I thought that was a great and wonderful thing. And I was impressed. And I said, wow, man, that is really cool. That this guy's got such a great life and has never been this far gone from his wife for this many days. And it's just chomping at the bit. Got to hurry up and get home because that's the kind of life they have. and he's happy that way. And so that was good. It's like I said, there's been a lot of guys like that, a lot of guys who just came up and just had a wonderful time. But there was always lessons to be learned. Always some type of lessons to pick up while you were there. Some type of life's lessons that all of a sudden you were in an environment where you were open and could hear clear enough and think well enough, shed so many of those little grievances that clutter your mind that you can make good decisions, good, clear decisions, and decide on how to do things. And that was always the case with everybody, with me, with the hunters, with everybody. You would always find time that this being up there would clear your mind. You had plenty of time to think out stuff. And you would, and I'm afraid that having that cell phone in your pocket would make that impossible. I just don't believe, looking at how people are stuck on their cell phones, indoctrinated into looking up every little item. And I've had hunters try to tell me which direction to go before, and that's when I quit guiding. They didn't know it, but as soon as they started giving me directions off a cell phone, they were on their own. I right then and there, I look, you're going to go by that thing, you don't need me. And that may not have been the correct way to behave, but that's pretty much the way I did it. If they weren't going to listen to me, because that thing may tell them which direction to go, but at the same time, it didn't tell them which way when the wind would swirl, or what time in the morning the air was going to change, or there's a lot of things that cell phone wasn't going to tell them. So I let them look at it, but yeah, it's a detriment. You're better off to leave it in the truck and go to the mountains and live without it, and just live clear and clean. It's kind of like I've said about my house here. Now, I know I'm shifting gears just a little bit, but I always said if I had a windmill for water and a wood stove in the house, I said, I can go a long ways on just taking care of myself. I can go a real long ways with just a windmill and a wood stove. So, simplify. That's what I always say. I'm thinking of all these things while I'm sitting here with my knee up in the air. And sorry you didn't have a guest this morning, but I hope you don't mind listening to me prattle just a little bit about leaving the cell phones in the truck when you go to the mountains. When you go to the deer stand, leave them in the truck. Go sit there and enjoy the morning. See if you don't enjoy it more. So, try it. See what works. I'm always all ears. I'm full of it. You can tell me I'm full of it. But that's what I believe. So, this morning's edition was also brought to us by Shaw's Bend Social Club, country club for folks who don't have a country club. Now, go out, enjoy the weekend, enjoy the day, have fun, be safe, be careful, and y'all just remember pretty much any day is sure a good day to be out in the woods.